Zeke Dalton sucked in a sharp breath, eyes watering as he clutched his spoon midair. The half-melted chunk of triple berry freeze in his mouth exploded with icy vengeance, stabbing behind his eyes like a nail gun powered by spite. Brain freeze is the real threat, he muttered, squinting at the ceiling of his kitchen as if the drywall up there had betrayed him. From 6 feet away, something hissed. Zeke froze, spoon still in his mouth. The hiss came again, soft, deliberate, and mechanical. He turned slowly, expecting maybe a pipe leak or another one of those weird sounds old houses made. What stood in his living room instead was 3 meters of matte gray alien, its wide-set eyes blinking in sequence, not simultaneously. Its skin was smooth and faintly reflective like a fish's scales under moonlight. In one hand, it held a blinking tablet. The other hand hovered near its torso, twitching occasionally with slow, deliberate curls. Zeke stared, spoon still in mouth. The alien raised the tablet, pointed it at Zeke, and tilted its head. Zeke took the spoon out of his mouth. "Okay," he said slowly, "either I've passed out from too much sugar or you're real." "I am real," the alien replied, its voice modulated but comprehensible. "You consumed a frozen substance at a rapid pace. Your body responded negatively. Yet you persisted. Why?" Zeke blinked. "Wait, did you just watch me eat ice cream? Are you spying on me?" "I am observing," the alien replied. "You are Zeke Dalton. You consume a common Earth delicacy known as frozen dessert. Your reaction was one of visible pain. Yet you made a joke." Zeke looked down at the tub of triple berry freeze. "You're telling me you traveled across the galaxy to watch me get a brain freeze?" The alien didn't answer. It simply stepped closer. Zeke backed toward the counter, his free hand inching toward the drawer where he kept the steak knives. The alien noticed. "I am not here to harm," it said. "I am Inox of the Rilari. We are studying your adaptability thresholds. This consumption behavior is of interest." Zeke opened the drawer anyway, just in case. "So, you're some kind of alien scientist?" Inox's eyes blinked again, top to bottom this time. "I am the lead physiological observer for this quadrant. Your species demonstrates unusual resilience. This act of self-induced cranial pain, followed by humor, is inconsistent with known intelligent species behavior. It must be studied." Zeke narrowed his eyes. "You're telling me I just made first contact with an alien race because I ate ice cream too fast?" "Yes." Zeke closed the drawer slowly. "Okay, that's new." Inox moved a few steps around the kitchen, scanning the half-melted tub with its tablet. "Do all humans consume frozen food this way?" "Not all," Zeke said. "Some people are more careful. But when it's 85 degrees outside and your AC's broken, you don't really think about technique." Inox looked toward the window. "Temperature noted. Your environment is hostile. Yet you choose to ingest something that worsens cranial discomfort. Fascinating." Zeke chuckled nervously. "Well, I guess humans are full of contradictions." "Indeed." The tablet emitted a soft chime. Inox tapped it twice. Suddenly, a second figure shimmered into view beside Inox, smaller and draped in a translucent layer of something that looked like gelatin armor. Its coloration was more amber than gray. "This is Ral," Inox said. "He is a sensory analyst. He will record your reactions more directly." Zeke held up both hands. "Whoa, hang on. I didn't sign up for any experiments." "You did not," Inox agreed. "However, your actions have already provided critical data." Ral stepped forward and extended a small, triangular device toward Zeke's forehead. "Nope," Zeke said, backing up fast. "You're not scanning my brain with that thing. It is non-invasive. You say that like it means something to me." Ral paused, then retracted the device. Inox regarded Zeke for several seconds. "Would you permit an environmental demonstration instead?" Inox asked. "You may lead. We will observe." Zeke thought for a moment. "You want me to show you more frozen food situations?" "Correct." Zeke licked his lips. "All right, but no brain poking." "Agreed." 10 minutes later, Zeke was in his beat-up pickup truck headed toward the town's only convenience store, with Inox crammed awkwardly in the passenger seat and Ral somehow folded into the back like a camping chair made of meat and worry. The clerk at the counter barely glanced up when Zeke walked in, aliens in tow. "Morning, Zeke." "Hey, Pete." Zeke headed straight for the freezer section. "All right," he whispered to his companions, "this is the battlefield. Popsicles, frozen burritos, microwave lasagna, and the holy grail ice cream sandwiches." Ral pressed his face against the glass, eyes wide. "These are all consumed despite the known risk?" "Well, not all of them give you brain freeze," Zeke said. He grabbed a 6-pack of sandwiches and held them up. "But these bad boys?" "These are landmines." Back in the truck, Inox examined the packaging. "You willingly purchased these despite the potential for cranial trauma." "Yeah," Zeke said, tearing one open and biting into it without hesitation. "There's something about cold and sweet that's worth the risk." He winced as the pain hit again, stabbing between his eyes like an ice pick. "There it is," he groaned. "The freeze." Ral watched with rapt attention. And yet, humor follows. Zeke, eyes still watering, nodded. "Told you. Brain freeze is the real threat." That quote, as it turned out, would end up on the front page of 6 Rilari scientific digests. By the end of the week, Zeke's kitchen had become a field lab. Ral installed small biosensors on the fridge door. Inox brought in a gravity-stabilized field generator so equipment wouldn't slide off the countertops. Zeke tried to keep up with the influx of questions, but soon found himself overwhelmed. "Do your kind experience identical pain across individuals?" Inox asked one evening while Zeke sat on the floor, rubbing his temples after trying a frozen mango bar. "Not really," Zeke mumbled. "Some folks are more sensitive. Others don't get it at all." Inox made several notes. "You were among the higher threshold category." "Lucky me." Ral approached with a small vial. "This compound reduces nerve response. May we test it on you?" Zeke hesitated. "You mean you want me to eat something that numbs my brain?" "It is derived from local Earth compounds. Similar to your mint, but enhanced." Zeke rubbed his brow. "Fine. But if I wake up speaking Martian, I'm suing someone." The vial tasted like toothpaste mixed with battery acid. Zeke gagged, but minutes later, when he bit into another frozen snack, the pain was dulled. "I think it worked," he said, surprised. Ral clapped. "Well, it made a sound like clapping, but it was more like 2 gelatin hands slapping together underwater." "Adaptation achieved," Inox said. "We must replicate this across multiple subjects." Zeke stood. "Hold on. I didn't volunteer Earth for a brain freeze vaccine trial. I just wanted a snack." "You provided the first proof," Inox said. "Others will follow." That night, Zeke lay in bed staring at the ceiling, wondering how his life had veered from quiet bachelorhood to being a case study in alien neurology. The next day, things got worse. The Rilari ship decloaked over the town's reservoir, visible to every resident within 10 miles. People panicked. Phones rang off the hook. The National Guard showed up. News vans circled like vultures. Zeke answered his door to find 3 agents in black suits. "Zeke Dalton?" one of them asked. "You're here about the ice cream, aren't you?" They didn't laugh. Zeke was taken to a secure facility outside of town where he was questioned for 13 hours straight about his contact, the Rilari's intentions, and the nature of the brain freeze joke. "They fixated on that line," one agent said. "Repeated it again and again." Another leaned forward. "In their language, it translates to something near cranial frost is preeminent peril. They think it's a warning." Zeke groaned. "It was just a joke. You know, like. It hurts, but it's not really dangerous." "They don't know that." From that point on, Zeke became a sort of unofficial ambassador. The Rilari refused to talk to anyone else. They wanted more data, more frozen food studies, and more of Zeke's baffling jokes. "You made an impression," one official told him. "I gave myself a headache and said something dumb," Zeke replied. "That's not diplomacy." But it was. And as more Rilari arrived, bringing scanners and translators and more vials of minty brain-numbing agents, Zeke realized something unsettling. What had started as a joke was now shaping interstellar understanding of humanity. And he was at the center of it. The first time Zeke blacked out, he was halfway through a frozen peach bar in a refrigerated tent pitched behind the municipal tennis courts. It was early afternoon. humid enough to make the air feel like soup, and 3 Rilari scientists were crouched nearby, their amber skin glinting faintly under the battery-powered LEDs strung along the canvas ceiling. No one panicked. Not immediately. "Subject has ceased upright locomotion," said the tallest of the trio, pressing a palm to a flat device slung across their chest. "Initiating passive monitoring." Zeke, sprawled on a thin foam mat with melting peach slush dribbling down his chin, stirred only when one of the aliens touched his wrist. "Pulse is irregular," said the second one, this one draped in a loose mesh of sea-green fibers. "Temperature dropping in digits. Human thermoregulation is compromised." Zeke groaned. "Didn't think Peach would take me down?" The third Rilari leaned close, mandibles twitching in a pattern that, according to the interpreter device, indicated mild concern. "Explain your sudden collapse." "Didn't eat breakfast," Zeke mumbled. "Don't usually need to when it's hot. Guess that's not smart when you're on your 5th frozen snack before lunch." A small electric hum filled the tent as the monitoring equipment recalibrated. The ambient chill was maintained precisely at 59 degrees Fahrenheit. The aliens had determined, through trial and error, that this was the point at which their own physiology remained stable while still allowing the human body to exhibit cold response behaviors without entering full hypothermia. Zeke sat up slowly, wiping his mouth with the sleeve of his shirt. "You got anything with protein in it? Or are we still on the observe human with dessert kick?" The sea-green one reached into a case and pulled out a packet labeled in blocky, transliterated English. "Nutri-starch replica? Chicken-esque." Zeke stared at it. "That's not food," he said. "It is calorically adequate," the alien replied. "It looks like someone vacuum-sealed drywall." The tallest Rilari scanned Zeke's face. "Your visual assessment of nutrition is unreliable. You also approved of a product described as pudding in a tube." "That's different," Zeke said. "That was chocolate." A half-hour later, after the local EMTs had been waved away by the Rilari's diplomatic liaison, an unnervingly cheerful woman from the Department of Temporary Alien Accommodations, Zeke was back on his feet and sipping lukewarm electrolyte fluid. "You need to pace your testing," she told him without looking up from her tablet. "They don't fully understand human metabolism. They assumed the peach bar was within acceptable tolerance." "It was," Zeke said. "For 1. Not for 6. From outside the tent came a light tapping, followed by the flap pulling back. Inox entered, ducking slightly beneath the frame. "You exceeded your intake capacity," Inox said. "We should have monitored your glucose levels more continuously." Zeke took a sip of the drink. "You think?" Inox's eyes moved in a slow rotation. "We have not yet modeled the full complexity of human glycemic response. Your species' internal regulation varies too broadly between individuals." Zeke leaned back in the folding chair. "Maybe next time we try something less icy." "We have acquired a new data set," Inox said. "You will find it more suitable." 10 hours later, just after midnight, Zeke was standing in an underground parking garage beneath the city's administrative building, staring at a refrigerated cube filled with what appeared to be hundreds of frozen meals arranged in alphabetical order. Ral was perched beside it, adjusting a narrow, metallic visor across his upper faceplate. "What is that thing?" Zeke asked. "Thermal contrast behavioral simulator," Ral replied. "It delivers subdermal chill in controlled gradations while you consume various solid-state Earth foods." Zeke squinted at the display. "You're running a frozen dinner gauntlet?" Ral handed him a tray. "Begin with the item labeled Salisbury imitation. It has high sodium content and uneven internal heat distribution. Ideal for reaction mapping." Zeke peeled back the plastic film. Steam rose from one side, while the other was still partly frozen. "You're trying to recreate the microwave dinner experience? You could have just asked me to eat this at home. We require real-time data under isolated variables." He took a bite, winced, and reached for the water bottle. "Tastes like regret." Ral noted the response. "Emotional overlay detected during consumption. Please elaborate." "Hard to," Zeke said. "These things are nostalgia bombs. You eat them and suddenly remember your mom working late shifts and your dad forgetting to buy groceries. There was a pause. Emotional memory is triggered by temperature and taste correlation? Ral asked. Sometimes, Zeke admitted. Not just taste. Context. Smell. Texture. It's tangled. Inox entered from the far side of the garage, carrying a canister emitting a soft hum. We are introducing a new variable. Zeke eyed it warily. Please don't be another Mindy brain juice. This is an auditory overlay. It mimics domestic ambience. We hypothesize that environmental sounds will alter your response to the meal. A low crackle filled the air, followed by faint noises, a microwave door slamming, a dog barking, a television commercial blaring from another room. Zeke blinked. Okay, that's weirdly accurate. He took another bite. This time, the taste hit differently. Not better, just more familiar. Like his brain had been tricked into thinking he'd aged backwards 15 years. You're not just studying pain anymore, he said slowly. You're chasing something else. Pattern recognition, Inox said. We believe your species integrates discomfort with meaning. Pain alone is insufficient to explain your behavior, but pain plus memory may be essential. Zeke set the tray down. You're saying we make sense of suffering by attaching it to something else? You do not merely endure, Ral added. You contextualize. That is rare. He exhaled through his nose. Yeah, well, it's what you do when you can't fix everything. You wrap it in a story and move on. Inox's tablet chimed. A new data set had arrived from the orbiting vessel. Preliminary analysis suggested that human cold response pathways were more influenced by prior emotional states than by external temperature alone. They didn't say it out loud, but Zeke could tell this was bigger than snack science now. 2 days later, the experiments shifted location again. This time, the Rilari set up inside a decommissioned meat packing plant north of town. It had been converted in record time into a controlled environment testing zone with separate chambers for flavor profiling, texture tolerance, and thermal threshold mapping. Zeke was issued a jumpsuit lined with thin carbon mesh. It tracked his body temperature, heart rate, oxygen saturation, and microtremors in muscle tension. He looked like a rejected stuntman from a low-budget sci-fi film. You could have just asked me to wear a fitted, he told Ral. This suit delivers real-time data across 52 biometric channels, Ral replied. Your commercial devices are insufficient. The first test involved a sorbet infused with capsaicin extract. The idea was to examine how simultaneous heat and cold stimuli affected cognitive function. Zeke took one bite and immediately dropped the spoon. That's evil, he gasped. It's like licking a glacier that's on fire. Describe the sensation more precisely, Inox said. Zeke wheezed. Tongue's confused. Brain's panicking. I think my sinuses just filed for divorce. Later that evening, while reviewing the day's footage, Inox paused on a still frame of Zeke mid-reaction, mouth open, eyes wide, the spoon falling from his hand. The image was already being circulated among Rilari analysts, accompanied by a new hypothesis that humans used contradiction as a form of emotional processing. Back in the plant's break room, Zeke sat on a metal stool, sipping chamomile tea the liaison had insisted he drink between sessions. Did you ever think, he said to no one in particular, that one day you'd be the poster child for interspecies culinary diplomacy? Ral tilted his head. You are not representative of your species. But you are unusually illustrative. Zeke raised an eyebrow. Thanks. I think. A low vibration passed through the facility floor. Above them, the Rilari vessel adjusted its position in the stratosphere, aligning for better transmission. The lights flickered once, then steadied. That's the third time today, Zeke said. You guys using my town as a Wi-Fi hotspot? We are relaying context models to our cultural interpreters, Inox said. They are having difficulty classifying your behavior. Zeke finished his tea and stood. Try filing it under people who do dumb things for snacks. That's probably a whole category for us. He walked back toward the testing room, the carbon mesh suit rustling faintly with each step. Behind him, the Rilari prepared the next phase of analysis, simultaneous exposure to conflicting taste profiles under emotional duress. It would involve pickles, chocolate syrup, and a recording of a voicemail from Zeke's ex-girlfriend. He didn't know that yet, but he'd show up anyway, because somehow in the middle of all this he'd started to understand what the Rilari were really after. And maybe, just maybe, they were starting to understand him too. The testing chamber smelled faintly of vinegar and melted chocolate. Zeke stood in the middle of it, arms slightly raised like he wasn't sure whether to brace for impact or surrender. Two Rilari hovered behind a translucent partition, their elongated digits flicking across a control panel that looked suspiciously like an old Etch-a-Sketch. A speaker overhead crackled. "Begin ingestion." Zeke eyed the plate in front of him. A small pickle, drizzled with chocolate syrup and garnished with something that looked like a fruit leather strip folded into a rosette. It was unclear whether it was meant to be edible or simply ceremonial. "You're absolutely certain this isn't a dare?" he asked. One of the Rilari adjusted a dial. The compound sequence was selected based on conflicting gustatory profiles. "We are observing neural prioritization under internal contradiction." Zeke picked up the fork with the careful resignation of a man who'd already made peace with his choices. "At least let me sit down this time." A low pulse sounded and a padded stool extended from the floor with a soft hiss. He sat. He stared at the plate for another moment. Then he took a bite. The initial crunch was sharp, briny, and familiar. But the chocolate hit half a second later, coating his tongue in sugar and bitterness. His brain lurched. His brow furrowed. "I don't know whether to gag or ask for seconds." Described the sensation in sequential detail. Zeke leaned back, chewing slowly. "It's like my taste buds filed separate reports. The pickle team is staging a protest, and the chocolate faction thinks they're running a fondue party. Neither one is backing down." The Rilari exchanged a short burst of clicks. "Cognitive dissonance confirmed," said the one on the right. A second bite. Zeke closed his eyes, trying to isolate the flavors. The salt overwhelmed the sweetness at first, but then the sugar fought back like a toddler with a grudge. He shook his head. "You ever try to read two books at once, but one's a thriller and the other's a tax manual?" Explain the relevance to sensory integration. They're both happening, but your brain doesn't know which one to pay attention to. So you get stuck in the middle, confused and vaguely irritated. There was a pause on the alien side. The data was clearly not matching the models. "Emotional interference detected," said the left one. Zeke wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. "Yeah, well, you layered this thing with a voicemail from my ex playing in the background. That kind of messes with the mood." Your heart rate increased significantly at the 30-second mark. "Is that due to flavor, memory, or the vocal imprint?" "All three," he muttered. "You ever get dumped over voicemail while holding a half-eaten popsicle? It brands itself into your neurons." The partition slid open. Ral stepped in, holding a new device that resembled a curling iron mated with a stethoscope. He approached Zeke's right temple and gently pressed the end of it against his skin. "We are confirming limbic activation." Zeke tilted his head. "That thing gonna zap me?" "No. It measures subcortical flux. We are mapping emotional resonance against ingestion patterns." He sighed. "You people really go hard on snacks." "This is not about food," Ral said. "It never was." Zeke blinked. "Then what is it?" Ral stepped back. "You endure contradiction as a default state. That is singular." Zeke took a breath and exhaled slowly. "You mean the fact that we eat things that make us sad, listen to songs that remind us of breakups, and keep photos of people who hurt us?" "Yes. Your kind folds discomfort into identity. You do not discard it." "That's not resilience," Zeke said. "It's coping." Distinction unclear. He pushed the plate away. "You're trying to map logic onto something that's not logical. We don't eat weird food combos because they make sense. We do it because they remind us of something, or because we're bored, or curious, or trying to feel something we lost." Ralph's fingers twitched once. "You allow internal conflict to persist indefinitely. Other sentient species suppress such contradiction." "Sounds boring. Sounds stable." Zeke stood up. "Life's not stable. It's messy. You make peace with the chaos or it eats you alive." The two Rilari behind the partition recorded the exchange in silence. The chocolate pickle test was officially concluded. 2 days later, the facility was dismantled. The Rilari had harvested enough data to begin synthesizing emotional duality models. Each of the testing modules was carefully packed into vacuum-sealed crates and loaded into a transport pod the size of a camper van. The municipal council requested the meat plant be fumigated, citing concerns about interdimensional pickling residue. Zeke was given a check from a government account stamped Temporary Alien Integration Initiative. It wasn't enough to retire, but it paid off the truck and fixed the air conditioning. By the following week, the skies were clear again. The Rilari vessel had withdrawn to the outer atmosphere, its diplomatic crew rotating back to their home sector. Only one remained, a liaison embedded with Earth's Xenolinguistic Task Force. Inox met Zeke one last time by the reservoir. The summer heat had returned with a vengeance. Dragonflies hovered over the water like tiny helicopters on lunch break. Zeke leaned against the hood of his truck, a bottle of iced tea sweating in his hand. "You learned what you needed?" he asked. Inox gave a slow nod. "You have confirmed the hypothesis. Your kind integrates pain into meaning structures rather than rejecting it." Zeke swirled the tea. "So what happens now? We will study your cultural artifacts. We have begun translating your literature, your poems, songs, and advertisements. Careful with those last ones. You're liable to think we worship car insurance. We already accounted for that anomaly." They stood in companionable silence for a moment. A breeze rolled across the water, stirring the cattails. "Your joke," Inox said finally. "The one that initiated contact." Zeke chuckled. "The brain freeze thing?" "Yes. It was not a warning. Nor was it true." "Nope," Zeke said. "It was just a throwaway line. Something you say when you don't know what else to say. And yet it led to unprecedented exchange. Sometimes the dumbest things open the smartest doors." Inox tapped a small console on his forearm. A low chime sounded and a sleek transport pod rose from the lake's far edge, skimming the surface like a water bug. "You will not be contacted again," Inox said. "Your contribution is complete." Zeke nodded. "Yeah, I figured." Inox turned to leave, then paused. "You did not ask for anything. No reward, no favors." Zeke looked out over the water. "Didn't have much to lose. Just wanted to understand what the hell was happening." "You understood more than we expected." Zeke raised his bottle. "Take care, Inox." The Rilari entered the pod. It lifted silently and ascended into the sky, vanishing into the clouds without drama or fanfare. By evening, the news cycle had already moved on. A heatwave advisory was issued. Traffic on the interstate backed up for 6 miles after a semi carrying frozen waffles overturned. Zeke sat on his porch, watching the stars emerge one by one. He opened the freezer. Inside, tucked between a bag of peas and a pint of mint chip, sat a single chocolate-covered pickle on a paper plate wrapped in cling film. He stared at it for a long moment. Then he closed the door. Some contradictions were better left undigested.